What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another quick thoughts video, another NFL mock draft video. In this one, we're doing a one-round mock, just like the previous ones. I'm going to have more rounds in future mocks. I want to do at least a two-round because I think that's a little more intriguing. But first, a one-round mock on some recent items I've seen about the reported interest in JJ McCarthy by the Minnesota Vikings. And currently, according to Fox Sports, JJ McCarthy's next team odds, the best odds are Minnesota Vikings at plus 115. Next is I'll move this to the screen actually. Next is the New England Patriots at plus 400, New York Giants at plus 550, Washington Commanders at plus 800, Denver Broncos plus 850, and Las Vegas Raiders at plus 1400. So essentially, the two teams with the second and third pick, because the number one pick locked in, right? You know it's going to be Caleb Williams out of USC. So the two teams with the next picks, the Commanders and the Patriots, if they stray from the two presumptive next quarterbacks and go to Michigan's, pass thrower, or teams that could trade up. The Giants could trade up or draft him at 6, I suppose. Minnesota Vikings could trade up. Denver Broncos, Las Vegas Raiders, all it needs are quarterbacks. And Minnesota is not someone I've had taking JJ McCarthy in previous mocks. I've gotten comments that they from Vikings fans saying that they couldn't believe Minnesota not taking a quarterback, given the fact that they lost out on Kirk Cousins. And they're probably in a win now mode, right? Justin Jefferson's going to get paid. You sign Aaron Jones, you got TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. You're going to add pieces to the defense, you'd hope. I think there's a lot of good pieces there. And Kevin O'Connell, I think, is a good head coach. So JJ McCarthy to the Vikings is happening today, and we'll get to that as we start the mock draft. But before we get to JJ McCarthy, we have the number one overall pick locked in. As I mentioned before, Caleb Williams is the presumptive number one overall pick. I would be very surprised if he's not the selection at number one. You could have argued months ago. I could have argued months ago that maybe he wouldn't be with Justin Fields still on the roster. Not anymore. It's going to be Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. He's going to be the franchise signal caller in Chicago. Washington at pick 2. Now, this is more of a question. You could argue Drake May. You could argue Jaden Daniels. I could hear arguments for both. I wouldn't be shocked if they go either way. I keep bouncing between them. I'd say I'm like a 55-45 right now. It's Jaden Daniels. But like I said, wouldn't be surprised either way. New England, on the other hand, I would be a little surprised if they were comfortable with Jaden Daniels. I feel like just based on their previous quarterback history and Drake May's ability, I feel like he kind of fits what they're looking for. But Jaden Daniels does have a quick release, which is something that New England has targeted over the years, right? Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo, who else? Matt Castle, et cetera, Jacoby Brissett. So, you never know, I guess. And I could honestly see New England not going quarterback at pick 3 and trading out of that pick, or taking a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt and trading back into the first round to get a guy like Michael Penix Jr. But I'm not going to have them doing that in this mock draft. Maybe I'll have that in a future mock draft. I'm going to have them go in the safe play here, taking Drake May, quarterback out of UNC. So Arizona pick 4. This is where it gets interesting. So obviously I'm going to have the Vikings trading up. The next 4 teams I feel like could all be trade back candidates. Arizona, the Chargers, the Giants, and the Tennessee Titans all feel like teams that need a good amount of talent to be added. With the Cardinals, they definitely need a wide receiver. They definitely need impact defensive players, especially in the defensive backfield. So Marvin Harrison Jr. would seem like a good addition, but maybe they feel enough value is there if Minnesota trades up to move back to 11 and take a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. Or maybe take their corner at pick wherever they're at, 11, 12, and then come back because they got another first-round pick and come back and get a wide receiver like, like a Troy Franklin out of Oregon, or A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, or Xavier Worthy out of Texas in the back half of the first round, where they have the Houston pick. So, they could play this a couple different ways. The Chargers are a team that, while I think they could go offensive line and they could go wide receiver, I don't think they are sold that they don't need both. I think they need pass catchers desperately. You feel like you hope Quentin Johnston could take a step up, but if you can get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. with pick 5, or even Malik Neighbors, you feel good about that. But Jim Harbaugh also likes to run the ball and probably needs to, soup up that offensive line if that's what he's going to do. And that's what he's shown to do year after year is power up the line of scrimmage and really, deepen the trenches. And that's something he hasn't done yet in LA because he's just gotten there. But he could take this opportunity to do that. And if they trade back to 11, there could still be a guy like Tylise Fuaga, should I say, or who else is on the tackle board? I'm like blanking. JC Latham could be there. Amarius Mims could be there. So, both of these teams could go a number of different ways. The Giants, they're a team, if they don't love the quarterback where they're at, I could see them trading back to 11, recouping some picks, adding some more talent, taking, like I said, Brian Thomas Jr. for the Chargers. I could see the same thing for the Giants because they need pass catchers. And maybe coming back doing what I said New England might do, trading back into the first round to take a guy like Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix from Oregon. And then Tennessee, lastly, probably needs the most talent out of any of these teams. They definitely need an offensive lineman. They probably need a wide receiver, although they did pay Calvin Ridley and they still have DeAndre Hopkins. I think they definitely need a tackle, but trading back 4 picks might be worth it if they get some more talent, especially in the defensive side of the ball. So 4 teams that I think could really be trade back candidates. Atlanta, I don't see as much. I feel like they need a top end talent. They're pretty ready to win now. Same with Chicago. I feel like they're comfortable picking 1 and 9, adding a quarterback and maybe a wide receiver or a tackle. So the question is, where do I want Minnesota trading up to? And I'm gonna say it right here. If I'm looking at a trade, and I'll pull up the trade assets between Arizona and Minnesota. It's going to look something like 11 and 23, which Minnesota already has. Would I be willing to do something like this and then they throw in like a second next year? So like let's say if Minnesota proposed this package. You give 11, 23, and then a second next year for 4 and 27. So Arizona's trading up 4 spots in one way, back 7 spots in the other way, and getting a second out of it. And if I'm Arizona and I'm sitting here at pick 4 and I desperately need a wide receiver to help out Kyler Murray, who I'm banking on being the franchise quarterback, I'm just not willing to take that deal. I think it's going to need more than that. And should it need more than that? Probably not. But at the end of the day, Minnesota has to be somewhat aggressive. And if this package could move up to pick 4, pick 5, and Arizona is convinced that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the guy, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with the Chargers trading back if that's the case. So for the Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. here. Now, pick 5 with the Chargers. This is where it gets more interesting because if Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, there's no way the Chargers are trading out of this pick, right? That's a dream scenario for them. It's probably part of the reason why Jim Harbaugh's hyping up JJ McCarthy. I know he's this college quarterback, but also for the fact if JJ McCarthy goes forward, that gives the Chargers essentially the pick of the litter among everybody that's the non-quarterback. That being said, the question is, how much does Jim Harbaugh value the line of scrimmage here? And could Joe Alt be the pick? Or is it worth trading out? Could Malik Neighbors be the pick too? If I'm betting right now, I don't think the Chargers would draft Malik Neighbors. I think, or Roma Dunze, frankly. I think they would go tackle or they would trade out of the pick. So if we're looking at a package here, once again, Minnesota and the LA Chargers. So we're looking at giving up pick 5 and then probably pick 37 here. So would you be willing to trade up from 37 to 23? So now, I mean, the Chargers lose their second round pick, right? But now you're looking at a situation where the Chargers could get a tackle like Tylise Fuaga and then come back and get a guy like A.D. Mitchell or Keon Coleman. And I like that for them. I think that's because I mean, even the wide receivers deep, 37 is a pretty big drop from 23. And you got teams in the back half of the first round, like the Buffalo Bills, like the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe even the Baltimore Ravens, maybe even the San Francisco 49ers if they move on from Brandon Ayuk. That could really affect things, and really take those top back end of the first receivers off the board, especially the ones the Chargers value, because you never know. I mean, certain teams value receivers certainly more than others. So if I'm the Chargers, I feel good about getting in front of those teams. I feel good about Also dropping only a few picks back and still taking one of the top tackles on the board. I mean, there's a real chance Olu Fashanu slips to them. Fashanu slips to them at pick 11. So I think I'm comfortable making that trade for the Chargers. And the Minnesota Vikings, they trade up. They get their franchise quarterback in JJ McCarthy. Like I said, throwing to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson with Aaron Jones in the backfield, not a bad situation for him. And that offensive line, I think, is pretty solid. So the Giants at pick 6. I mean, I mentioned they could trade back, but they desperately need a wide receiver here. Malik Neighbors seems to be the pick pretty easily. I think his talent is certainly, something that's an obvious standout, and the Giants have not had a number one wide receiver since Odell Beckham was there. So certainly need help in the pass catching department. Malik Neighbors provides that right away. Tennessee at pick 7 probably likes how the first 6 picks shook out. They could get the top tackle on the board and Joe Alt. I think given the options, that's where they go. Like I said, wouldn't be shocked if they go wide receiver there, but I think that's where they go. Atlanta at pick 8. Now, I will say, if there's a team that's desperate to move up to pick 8 for a guy like Rome Odunze, I could see Atlanta trading out of this pick. And it wouldn't be far because, like I said, I don't think they need a lot of assets. I think they're a pretty good team right now and they feel good about where they are. So the top talent available would be great. But if a team like the Jets, a team like the Chargers, right? The Chargers traded back. If they could trade back up and only give up a third and get Rome Odunze, I think they feel pretty good about that. And I would feel pretty good about that. And I am so tempted right now. You know what? I'm going to do it. I haven't done something similar to this where a team has traded back and traded up, but it's happened plenty of times. So, I mean, Arizona did it, last year? They traded the pick to Houston and then traded back up to take Paris Johnson Jr. Was that last year? That was last year, right? Yeah, it was. So I'm gonna have the same thing here. Chargers trading back up. Let's see what it would take. So it's probably gonna take a second. That's too much, it says. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder what it looks like if I'm gonna redo this because it's frozen. No, that's not what I meant to do. Can I like reset this? I don't like this trade machine, but it's free, so that's what we're doing. Why do they give up a third? If it's only gonna take a third to get up from pick 11 to pick 8 for the Chargers, get ahead of teams like the Bears and the Jets who would take Rome Odunze if available. Wow, I feel good about that. And then you could take a guy like, JC Latham at pick 23 if he's still around, or whoever else the tackle, wherever the tackles fall. Maybe even a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson to help improve that offensive line. I feel good about that if I'm the Chargers. You hop back up, still got pick 23. That's a big win. Now, the Chicago Bears probably don't like how that shook out. But I could see them going offensive tackle here, help protect Caleb Williams. But Dallas Turner's a very good defensive talent. And you probably feel good about taking him here. Atlanta probably wishes he would fall to pick 11. But they'll feel comfortable getting a different defensive player, I think. The Jets at pick 10. Probably hoping for Rome Odunze here, but nonetheless, I wouldn't be shocked if they go tackle. I wouldn't be shocked if they go wide receiver. I wouldn't be shocked if they go tight end. I wouldn't be shocked if they traded out of this pick. Brock Bowers could certainly be a weapon for them. Add him with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. You feel good about your pass catching group, and obviously Breece Hall out of the backfield. But maybe you need a tackle too. I mean, Tyron Smith is old. Morgan Moses has certainly not been healthy his entire career. Maybe you get another tackle like Tylise Fuaga and just have him back up for a while. But I like the top end talent of Brock Bowers. I think he's really exciting as a prospect. Pick 11 for the Atlanta Falcons. Like I said, they probably were hoping, what's his name? Dallas Turner was there at 11, but I like the prospects of adding Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold or Jared Verse. Question is, where does Raheem Morris really value the defensive positioning for them? And where does he see the biggest upgrade? I love Quinyon Mitchell's talent. I've done mock drafts where he was going in the top of the second round, and I stuck him into pick 32 because I thought he had the talent for it. And he's risen up draft boards since then. And I almost feel like it's my biggest achievement on this channel, hyping up Quinyon Mitchell. So he better not fail in the pros. But I'm going to pick him here at pick 11. He's ranked as the 11th best prospect according to NFL Mock Draft Database Simulator. Take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's their own opinion, but I think he's a borderline top 10 talent, but the top 10 teams probably are not taking a corner that early. So I think Atlanta feels really good about the way the draft shook out. The fact that they netted another third round pick. They've got 3 third round picks now in this scenario. I feel like they feel good about it. Denver at pick 12. Listen, Denver needs a quarterback desperately. And so I could see a scenario where they take Bo Nix here, or they trade back out of the back end of the first round to take a guy like Bo Nix. Michael Penix Jr. could be a fit there too. Let's look at the quarterbacks. Um, if they're going to go for a guy like Spencer Rattler, I certainly think that won't be in the first round, so that's not relevant right now. And I could have them reaching here. The question is, do I want them to reach? How desperate do you think Sean Payton is for a quarterback? And I don't think he's going to go quarterback here, given the options. You need to add another corner opposite of Patrick Surtain Jr. Terrion Arnold certainly has the top end talent for it. It seems like he's the second corner going, or the first, depending on the mock drafts that you look at. And I don't blame anybody who wants to take him as the first corner. I know I just hyped up Quinyon Mitchell for a while, but Terrion Arnold's athleticism is certainly top notch, and I could easily see him being a really dominant corner right away. So the Raiders at pick 13 have their pick of the tackles outside of Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu, despite falling down draft boards a little bit, right? There was pretty much consensus at the end of the NFL season that he was going to be top 9 at the very latest, that the Bears were going to snag him at 9. But the Raiders have their option here, and it depends on what they value. Do they value the raw talent of Fashanu that they can kind of mold into the tackle of the future, or do they value a guy like Tylise Fuaga, who's a little more flexible and can move around a little bit on the offensive line? And at the end of the day, they also, I mean, you can see it here, their needs are in the interior as well. So maybe Fuaga's the pick here. And, Fashanu slips to a team like New Orleans, who probably feels really good about getting a guy with the top end talent of Fashanu. Help protect Derek Carr, which they desperately needed to do last year and couldn't do it. I think they feel good about that. Indy at pick 15. The more time goes on, the more I think they take a wide receiver. And even though I know they have needs at corner and could go Nate Wiggins or Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry, I really feel like they're going to take a wide receiver. But at the same time, the need at corner is so desperate. Do you lean into the offense and help out Anthony Richardson, or do you really help to improve this defense and hope that you could really have a really, really solid unit if the Anthony Richardson kind of develops a little bit more? You feel good about the offense anyway. I don't know. That's the question. I'm going to have them taking a corner here. I've decided. Question is Nate Wiggins, Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, Kool-Aid McKinstry is certainly the most raw talent here. Cooper DeJean, kind of a pure athlete. Nate Wiggins, I think, is more the true corner in this. I mean, not that the other two are not, but just a guy that you feel like has the talent at the position more than anything. So I think Nate Wiggins is going to be the pick if they're going corner here. Seattle pick 16. I mean, Jared Verse is a lot of fun in that defense. Byron Murphy could be fun in that defense. I think they go defensive line given the options. I mean, I know they could go tackle here. Latham wouldn't be a bad pick. Fontenot wouldn't be a bad pick either. But Jared Verse's talent, you can't pass him up at pick 16. I feel like that's a solid pick for them. Jacksonville at pick 17. Jacksonville's a team that, despite leaning, between wide receiver and corner in my brain, I think they lean more wide receiver. You need to get Trevor Lawrence some more weapons. Brian Thomas Jr. could be that guy, depending on how you value. I mean, I've seen people value Ladd McConkey as the next wide receiver off the board. Xavier Worthy, even Troy Franklin, even. But at the end, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is the fourth best wide receiver in this draft. I think Jacksonville feels good about getting that big body end zone threat to help produce more offense with Trevor Lawrence. I feel like that's a solid pick for them. Cincinnati at pick 18. I think they go tackle all the way. And with J.C. Latham, the talent there, him still available, you can play him at right tackle right away. You feel good about that pick. Rams at pick 19. Need help all over the defense. Latu. I always butcher his name. Latu. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. He's a guy who, instantly could provide a pass rush off the edge. Wouldn't have to move very far from UCLA. But Byron Murphy at the same time could be your interior replacement for Aaron Donald. Obviously not nearly as good or talented yet. Maybe he will be. You never know. Maybe he's the greatest defensive player of all time. You never know. But I feel like you can't pass up Latu here. I feel like that's a really solid fit off the edge. And I don't think, I mean, obviously you're going to have a new defensive coordinator here with Raheem Morris in Atlanta, but Their defense has never been really focused on the defensive tackle because of the system. It's always been because Aaron Donald is dominant. And so I think when you can add a guy like Latu who could get to the quarterback, you feel more solid about that pick, even though Byron Murphy is certainly a talent that could warrant pick 19 or even sooner than that. The Steelers here, something really tells me that they're going to get a tackle, and you just pick Fontenot and you play him opposite side of Broderick Jones and you help protect Russell Wilson and see if he can prove that he's still got more left in him. Same time, could see the defensive addition, but Fontenot here I think makes a lot of sense for them. Miami, Byron Murphy could certainly be the pick for them, but I can't see them not going offensive line. They probably wanted Fontenot to slip to them, but Amarius Mims is certainly a solid talent. You could also argue JPJ is a guy they should go with, but Amarius Mims is who I'm taking here for the Miami Dolphins to help protect Tua and give him time to throw to those great weapons. Philadelphia Eagles certainly need help in the secondary. Cooper DeJean is a really athletic guy who could step in right away to that defensive position and really be a ball hawk for you. I think that's a win draft right there. It's a draft pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. Los Angeles Chargers. So they got Roma Dunze. They got pick 23. As much as I said offensive tackle and Tyler Guyton's there, maybe if I was to go back, I would have them trading up for an offensive tackle. They also need help on the interior a little bit. But with Cooley McKinstry being here, I can't hate adding, top talent at corner. He's raw, but I think he'd be a lot of fun in LA. Dallas at pick 24. I mean, offensive line is certainly the play here. You help protect Dak in his contract year, and you see where you're going at the quarterback position. JPJ is certainly a talent that could do that. I think could play guard or center at the NFL level. Green Bay at pick 25. Similar story. I think they go offensive line. Question is, do they go Guyton or Barton? Either way, I could see, leaning depending on what you value here. Jordan Morgan is a guy that could sneak into the back end of the first round, but I'm going to go Tyler Guyton here. That might be a little early for him, but I don't hate the pick for Green Bay. Help protect Jordan Love. Tampa Bay at pick 26. If you asked me earlier in this offseason, I would have thought they were going wide receiver. Now I think could be a defensive player. Chop Robinson is a lot of fun. You know what? I'm adding Chop Robinson. I can't resist that. Adding to Tampa to that defense. That's a lot of fun. Arizona gets their next pick. And I said they were going to go corner, but Byron Murphy adding to that defense, that's a huge win. I like that a lot. Buffalo pick 28. Johnny Newton could be the play here, but given that they just traded Stephon Diggs, I think Adonai Mitchell is certainly the guy they're going to go for with these options. I just think at the end of the day, even though I probably had Buffalo taking a wide receiver anyway, a guy like Adonai Mitchell, the top end talent there to replace a guy like Stephon Diggs. I mean, I don't think in Curtis Samuel and Shakir you have enough talent to, really warrant a successful pass catching group, or to really call it a successful pass catching group. Adonai Mitchell, I think, has the top end talent to be really a wide receiver one in the league. I think he's got a lower floor than maybe some of the other options available, especially guys like Troy Franklin, Keon Coleman, and Xavier Worthy. But I think Buffalo has to go all in with the top talent available. Detroit at pick 29. Listen, Johnny Newton was going pick 18 in some mock drafts that I've done in the past, and certainly he could be a weapon on the defensive line. You pair him alongside Aiden Hutchinson, you got a pretty good front line, right? But at the end of the day, I think if Detroit's serious, they probably need a few pieces here. And you're sitting at a spot at pick 29 where a team could trade back in the first round and get that fifth-year option on their franchise quarterback. And if there's a team to do it, it's either going to be Denver or the Raiders. The question is, which one do I want to trade with? So let's put Detroit on this side. Let's look what the Raiders have to trade. You know what? We'll put Denver on this side. That'll make it easier. So Denver doesn't have a second this year. They'll be trading their second next year. And they actually have the Lions fourth. If you're the Lions and you're banking on a second next year from Denver, you're probably banking on them being a bad team. And I'd probably bank on Denver being worse than the Raiders in this scenario. But would I rather have pick 44? or a third rounder and then next year's pick. I'd much rather have pick 44. So let's pull the Detroit Tigers back up here. Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions. My brain's on baseball still. Pick 77. They've already got a third. What does the second look like next year? I shouldn't have done that. Let me reset this. Just pick a random team and then reset it to the Raiders. What does it look like if I do a third? How do I want to do this? Let's do this and a fifth. You feel good about that if you're the Lions? I feel like you feel good about that. You move up from 164 to 77. You move down about 15 spots. You probably want a little bit more. So maybe you get a sixth here. No, I don't hate that. Then you go 201, 205, 208. You really got three picks in a row. You could trade those three and move up to a fourth, which you don't currently have. I don't hate that here. I'm going to do that if I'm the Detroit Lions, and I can't do it because this trade machine is broken. This hurts me a little bit. Let me see if I can reset it by choosing two new teams. Do Detroit here. Do the Raiders on this side, and we go boom, boom. I already forgot what I did. And then they trade 164, and then you get a seventh or a sixth here. So just that you don't want me to trade those picks in particular? No, I don't know. Well, we're going to pretend this is the Raiders, obviously, and they're going to take their quarterback in the future. The question is Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix. I myself am very high on Michael Penix Jr. in comparison to Bo Nix, but also in comparison overall, I think we could look back and think Michael Penix Jr. should have been a top 10 draft pick. That being said, a lot of people believe in Bo Nix, and I'm not going to say that he's necessarily a bad pick. I don't know that I've watched enough Bo Nix to really have a solid opinion on him. But at the end of the day, talking about culture, we're talking about fit. And Antonio Pierce and the Las Vegas Raiders, they're big on culture. And Michael Penix Jr., he's one tough son of a gun, right? Played through injury in the playoff, in the college football playoff routinely, and obviously routinely hurt. That's part of it, but he's routinely battled back from injury. I could see Michael Penix Jr. being one of AP's dogs, and that's where I think they're going here. Baltimore pick 30, obviously not going quarterback. Listen, I mean, a defensive lineman like Johnny Newton would be difficult to pass up, but I think they go wide receiver here. Do you pair Ladd McConkey and his kind of interior route running ability with Zay Flowers and his ability to stretch the field a little bit? I like that. I like that. And I've never drafted Ladd McConkey in a first round of these mocks, but he's certainly rising up the draft boards. I don't hate that. San Francisco pick 31. They probably go offensive line. I mean, if they trade Brandon Ayuk, then it's a different conversation. But if they trade Brandon Ayuk, they're probably getting a first round pick in this draft. So I obviously don't think that happens if I'm doing this mock the way it is straight up. Graham Barton is a guy that could certainly add to the depth on their interior offensive line. I wouldn't hate going helping the defensive backfield because that certainly struggled in the playoffs. I wouldn't hate a guy like Jordan Morgan here. And I've certainly had them taking Jordan Morgan in previous mock drafts, but Graham Barton, I think, is the top end talent that you pick here. And the Chiefs, and shout out to Johnny Newton. The fact that he's made it to the second round is probably a big win for the Carolina Panthers, who are what pick 32 or 33, 34. But I just, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I can't pass up taking a wide receiver here. Xavier Worthy and his top end speed, I think, is a lot of fun. A lot of people believe in Troy Franklin. I'll hear it out, but I'd rather have Xavier Worthy, and maybe he doesn't turn into anything. Maybe he's the next John Ross or Darius Hayward Bay, right? To go back a few years. But I think the Chiefs got a bet on his speed and his top end talent. So we had three main trades really here. I mean, I know one of them is not here. The Chargers traded back from pick 5, netted pick 11 and 23, then traded pick 11 and also more because this wouldn't have gone through if it was just pick 11. But got pick 8. I think it was a pick next year. That's what it was. No, I think it was a pick this year. I think it was a second. But anyway. And then we had the Las Vegas Raiders trading up for their franchise quarterback with the Detroit Lions, which I don't have listed because it didn't go through. But a lot of interesting prospects here. I mean, obviously, JJ McCarthy is the story here to go to the Vikings at pick 5. And the first round kind of shook out relatively normal. Instead, we got to pick 8 with Rome Odunze going to the Chargers with them trading back up, as I mentioned. I feel like that's a big win for them. They get a guy like Rome Odunze, come back and get Julian McKinstry. I mean, not too long ago, those two were top 12 picks in this mock. Um, the Bears get Dallas Turner, end up, I mean, they probably hoped Rumouduzzi would fall to them, but nonetheless. And the Falcons probably don't hate it overall because they net a second and get Quinyon Mitchell. Um, the Raiders help protect their new franchise quarterback with Tyler Fuaga. Saints also get a tackle to help protect Derek Carr. The Jaguars get a replacement for Calvin Ridley and Brian Thomas Jr. Bengals help protect their quarterback. Same with the Steelers. Same with the Dolphins. Some corners go off the board. I mean, a lot of offensive linemen, a lot of corners, a lot of wide receivers. Adonai Mitchell replaces Stephon Diggs. Ladd McConkey replaces Odell Beckham. Michael Penix Jr. replaces, well, really Derek Carr, but I mean, Aiden O'Connell, if you will. And Xavier Worthy replaces, Tyreek Hill or maybe Rashee Rice, now that he's probably not going to be there next year. It's a fun mock draft. I mean, do I think it's ultimately very likely that JJ McCarthy goes 5? Probably not. I think he goes maybe 4 or 6. Um, but like I said, I mean, if I'm Arizona, I wouldn't accept that package for the Minnesota Vikings. And I would rather take Marvin Harrison Jr. because I think he's far and away the top receiver. So you do what you will, you take what you will, you trade what you will. And that's how mock drafts work. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this is a realistic scenario? If you were Arizona, would you have taken that package to trade back from pick 4 and had really 3 first-round picks, right? Because you would have gotten pick 11 from them, and then you would have had pick 23 from them, and then also your pick 27 from the Houston Texans. Maybe Arizona does that, right? And maybe I'll have them doing that in an upcoming mock draft. The Chargers take Marvin Harrison Jr. and Arizona takes, you know, I don't know, Quinyon Mitchell and JPJ and Byron Murphy. I don't know. I'm just throwing out names here, but we'll see. If you're interested in mock drafts, hit the subscribe button. There's going to be more on the channel as we lead to the NFL draft. When's the NFL draft? I don't know the date. I know we're not too far away. Thursday, April 25th. So we are 2.5 weeks away from this real draft. So if you are interested in mock drafts leading up until the draft, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for watching this Quick Thoughts episode, this mock draft. As I said, let me know what you think in the comments below. I appreciate all your support on this video and all the rest of them on the channel. Thanks a lot. It means a lot to me. Thanks for watching this Quick Thoughts episode. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.